Time for a new movie review. Let's flip over to Netflix and find out the truth, or otherwise, about the origins of the Pop-Tart. Hello, welcome back to my world of stuff. Quick video today on a film which I watched last night, which debuted on Netflix, which I've been sort of interested in seeing because it's the first directorial effort of Jerry Seinfeld, the legendary American comedian. At the age of 69, he's put stand-up aside for a little while and gone into directing. And it's an unusual first project, which I think came about on the basis of a casual conversation with friends a few years ago. It's a very American film. That's the first thing I'll say about Unfrosted, which is the film I'm talking about. Very much American, very much based on American culture, American pop culture of the 60s. And as such, I think a lot of the references in the film will sail way above the heads of anybody anywhere else in the world. I mentioned it stars and is directed by Jerry Seinfeld, of course, who is a legend on American television from the phenomenal success of the Seinfeld show, which ran for 9 years in the 1990s, like 80s into the 90s. A massive success, not much of a success in Britain. It never really went mainstream in Britain, but it's impossible to explain really how popular and successful it was in America, where I think the finale was watched by something like 70 million viewers. Inconceivable these days of fractured viewing habits. But Seinfeld was an absolute phenomenon. Of course, it led indirectly to the creation of Curb Your Enthusiasm. That was created by Larry David, who co-created Seinfeld with Seinfeld himself. Jerry's had a fairly quiet time since Seinfeld finished. He does stand-up. He wrote the not particularly distinguished animated movie B-Movie a few years ago. So it's interesting to see these come back with this project. Started watching this last night and I thought, this is going to be an odd one. This feels very episodic. It feels very bitty as it starts. It doesn't seem, the narrative seems to be all over the place in terms of what it wants to be and what it's trying to do. And I thought, I don't think this is going to be a very good film. This is going to be a low rater. This is going to be a 3 or a 4. It isn't, because I persevered with it. And once you're used to the fact that it is very American, it's practically got red, white and blue on every frame. It is so American. As I said, a lot of people outside America really won't know what's going on, or won't get the references. You get some. There's certain universal references to JFK. There's a cameo from JFK, which is really good, played by Bill Burr. There's a cameo for fans of Mad Men, and there's certain things you will pick up on. I think you need to be pretty well versed in American pop culture of the early 60s, because it's set in 1963, and basically it's about two rival cereal companies, Kellogg's and Post, who are battling to put the first of a new type of breakfast cereal, a toasted tart with a hot filling. Again, these are things which I think are known over here, but they again are sort of a food phenomenon in the States, and I don't think they've ever been big over here. I may be wrong in that, but I certainly know something that's ever ignited my taste buds particularly. The story itself is a fictionalized, very fictionalized version of the events of the creation of this thing, this food item, because it didn't happen like this. It's very fanciful. It's sort of inspired by, I don't think Post as a foodstuff company was around in the 60s. I think they were General Cereal Corporation and Kellogg's, but I don't know if there was ever this battle to bring this thing that they both created at the same time, according to the film, to the American masses. And it's a very pell-mell, fast-paced, hit-or-miss sort of comedy film, because you're watching it, and for the first half an hour, it really isn't very funny. The jokes don't seem to land, the targets don't seem very specific, but all of a sudden it starts to get somewhere a little bit. I think it's about the time where Hugh Grant appears, playing another one of the great roles he's playing these days. He's an actor who's really finding his feet and finding the fun again as he gets older, and he's obviously enjoying himself. He plays the actor inside Tony the Tiger, the Frosties symbol. And he's this sort of washed up actor who really thinks he's a bit more than he really is. And there's a sequence at the end which is very funny when he and his supporters stage this riot, which is quite amusing. It's an odd film that after about half an hour, you suddenly, if you're in the right mood, you get the rhythm of it, and some of the jokes start to fire. Particularly those jokes which work in the way that the best jokes in American comedy series do, those completely random things. If you've watched things like Parks and Recreation and 30 Rock, where people say bizarre things and random things happen, and The Big Bang Theory perhaps as well, maybe not quite so much, but slightly surreal, and the humour does get slightly surreal and off the wall. And I did find myself chuckling, then I was laughing, and once or twice I even guffawed, because there are slightly odd, silly things that happen, and that always appeals to me. And one particular example of this is where one of the side characters dies in an unlikely accident, and there's a funeral where the casket is in a grave which is covered in cornflakes and then covered in milk, and the casket rises up and sort of boils in this soup of cereal. And all of a sudden, Seinfeld's character, who is called Bob Cabana, he's an employee of Kellogg's who's trying to get this Pop-Tart thing out to the public. He is sitting with the wife of the person who's died. And all of a sudden, you see a woman in front of the casket wailing, why, too soon? And it's just a random bit where the wife turns to Seinfeld and goes, who's that? There's no connection to who he is. So there's these little slightly surreal, off-the-wall, random bits that did make me laugh. There are some quite good, snappy lines of dialogue. A lot of it doesn't work. A lot of it doesn't hit the mark. Again, possibly because I'm sitting over here in Wales and that's based over in California in the 60s. So a lot of it passed me by or just wasn't particularly funny. But when it was funny, there were surreal little bits. I thought that the depiction of Walter Cronkite, the very well-known American newsreader from the 60s and 70s, that was quite amusing. The depiction of Bill Burr as JFK was quite funny. So there's little odd things that really worked and chimed, but it's sort of hit and miss, unfortunately. It doesn't work all the time. What I did like about it is the fact that it is so colourful. I mean, wow, Technicolor just pops off the screen. It's very, very 60s in that. In the bit like the Batman TV series was so colourful and so vibrant. This is the same. The primary colours leap off the screen. The oranges, the yellows, the reds. It's all pow. And it's very clean. The whole world looks very clean. And another nice thing about it is it's quite family friendly. Now, I don't imagine there are going to be that many families clustered together to watch a comedy about the creation of the Pop-Tart starring a comedian who was most famous in the 1990s. It doesn't have that appeal, which is a shame because it is, there's no F-bombs, which is very unusual for any comedy film or TV series these days. And there's a couple of little slightly edgy, very borderline edgy little things here and there. But by and large, this is a very clean-cut film, which is to its credit. So, yeah, it's an odd one. I mean, it's nice to see Jerry Seinfeld back on screen again, as was always said at the time when Seinfeld is on. He's not the best actor in the world. And what I like about Jerry Seinfeld, certainly in the TV show, a smile was never far from his face. He was obviously finding the whole process of making a TV show quite amusing. And it's much the same here. He's got the confidence of being a bit older now, so he has a bit more gravitas to him. But he's not a fantastic performer, but he's surrounded by a good cast. And when I say this, I mean two people who normally I would run a mile from to avoid, namely Melissa McCarthy and Amy Schumer. I have very little time for either of them. But because they're side characters, it's not their projects, they're not dominating it with their personalities and their particular brands of humour, whatever they are. And they play the side characters that they play quite well. Melissa McCarthy plays Donna. She's a NASA scientist who, for some reason, finds herself in Kellogg's as they try to create this Pop-Tart. And Amy Schumer plays the real-life character of Marjorie Post, but not as the real-life Marjorie Post was. So it's a curate's egg, as they say. When it's good, it's very good. When it's bad, it's sort of... Well, it's not even bad, to be honest. It's just not very engaging at times. It's uneven, I think is probably the best thing to say about it, but it's not a bad film. And on the plus side, it's quite short. I think the actual film itself ends at about 84 minutes, then you've got about 10 minutes of credits. So it just gets on with it. But I think it's very different. You won't see another film like this again, probably ever. passion project for Jerry Seinfeld. It just looks beautiful. It looks really nice and clean and colourful and vibrant, and I really appreciated that. And the humour, when it works, made me laugh, and that's what you want from a comedy. But because it's sort of intermittently funny, I'm going to give Unfrosted, which is on Netflix now, a rating of 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10. The 5 is for the good bits, the 5 are for the bits that floundered. On Netflix now, worth a look if you're a fan of Jerry Seinfeld, but obviously it's not his best work. Right, thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this little review of Unfrosted on Netflix. Like and subscribe if you're new here. Press that subscribe button, which I believe is there. Like, leave a comments, all that usual sort of stuff. I will see you very soon. Until I do, keep taking the stuff.